A common misconception among Democrats regarding this extremely conservative Supreme Court is that they're going to be awful on social issues, when in reality, I actually think they're going to leave most social issues alone, but they're going to be hyper-focused on, and have been hyper-focused on, reversing workers' rights and, more importantly, handing down these pro-corporate Supreme Court rulings. And this is certainly one of them. So I'll set it up.
You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah. So here's the story. The Supreme Court has reversed two different lower court rulings, and it does, in fact, spell trouble for workers, not just here in the United States, but also abroad. So for the purposes of this video, we'll talk specifically about one of their rulings pertaining to a potential lawsuit against Nestle over essentially child trafficking and slavery that's taking place in Western Africa. So there are 6 men who tried to sue Nestle. And the 6 men who sued claimed that those companies aided and abetted child slavery because they knew or should have known that the farms were using enslaved children. So the two companies in question here are Nestle and Cargill. 6 individuals wanted to sue Nestle and Cargill, which are US-based companies, for their role in perpetuating this type of behavior abroad. And the Supreme Court has weighed in on this, with Justice Clarence Thomas writing that the lawsuit can't go forward. Justice Clarence Thomas, writing for the 8-1 majority, said the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit erred in allowing the suit on the grounds that Nestle and Cargill had allegedly made, quote, major operational decisions in the United States. Thomas said the 6 plaintiffs, who are from the nation of Mali, improperly sought to sue under the alien tort for conduct that occurred outside of the United States. But these are US-based companies, right? And the lower courts, particularly the Ninth Circuit Court, had disagreed with the reasoning that was provided by the Supreme Court. So the Ninth Circuit Court's ruling was reversed by the Supreme Court, and they had ruled that the plaintiffs had properly claimed the ATS applied in the cases because financing decisions originated in the United States. So, I mean, I agree with the Ninth Circuit Court.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just what kind of absurd logic is that? Like, you know, U.S. companies can't like execute someone on foreign soil. Like, that's illegal. Like, you know, no court would allow a company that was just like, oh no, we're like, part of our thing is that we're just gonna murder you know, someone who doesn't, you know, work for us properly. Like, our executives are ordered to, like, of course that wouldn't be allowed to happen. You know, that would be illegal under US law, even if the crime were occurring abroad. But, you know, it's just wild to see the court do this on an 8-1 majority. It's not even like the libs. I mean, I think Sotomayor was the only dissenting, right? And it's just like, by doing this, you're essentially giving them free reign to do child slavery. I mean, I don't know how anyone can look at this and just be like, well, I don't know, it's a very complex issue. And it's like, it's just not a complex issue at all. Like, you have to, I don't know, like you can't just like buy shit from that is manufactured by child slaves. Like, that's just not, that it's in any way, that the fact that that's in any way legal here in the United States is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, there are many US-based companies that exploit child labor abroad in order to manufacture their products. I remember several years ago, there was this big story about H&M, one of the retailers here in the US that had, or I think also in other countries, but one of the many retailers in the US that was relying on child labor in places like Vietnam under honestly awful working conditions in order to manufacture their products. And like, was anything really done about that? No. And what the Supreme Court through this ruling essentially did was say, look, there's really no legal avenue in which these exploited workers can get any justice, because if they're companies based in the United States, like, how are you? And the Supreme Court says, yeah, but the child trafficking and slavery is happening somewhere else. So you can't sue them. So like, what exactly are people supposed to do to get any justice? Again, these are companies based in the US. You know, the financing decisions, as the Ninth Circuit Court ruled, are made in the United States. But now, thanks to this Supreme Court ruling setting precedent, there really are no consequences. These corporations are shielded from consequences in the future, and they can just do whatever they want abroad. They can exploit as much child labor as they want. In this case, by the way, it's not just child labor. These are young children who are being like kidnapped in places like Burkina Faso, and then they're being trafficked to the Ivory Coast where they do the farming for the cocoa beans. It's so bleak. It's just disgusting. But this is the kind of stuff we're going to expect from a pro-corporate Supreme Court. All the attention has been on reproductive rights, which I get, you know, we should be concerned about the possibility of overturning Roe v. Wade. But this court, I think, is going to be more focused on handing down pro-corporate rulings that will undo any of the worker protections that were gained through labor movements earlier, you know, in this country's history. And there's another example of that, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, and I suspect that they, you know, the feeling I get from this court and from Roberts in general, the Chief Justice, is that he's a pretty savvy operator, and he doesn't want to do anything that is too that's going to inflame too much of the discourse. Like I remember like his Obamacare ruling, which was like, you know, one of the more heated Supreme Court decisions that I can remember in recent times. Like I remember like people like literally waiting out, like reporters like waiting outside the court, like waiting for the thing to come. Like Terry Moran on ABC News was like reading, like analyzing it live as the paper was like literally coming out of the thing. And you know, his ruling there was kind of like a savvy hedge. It wasn't like, it was unexpected. It wasn't, you know, people thought it was going to be like either all for the Democrats or all for the Republicans. He kind of like threaded the needle and charted this kind of middle ground there to like not piss off anyone too much, but to not like make anyone too happy. And I think that that's sort of microcosm for what the court's going to do in the present, which is like, you know, overturning Roe v. Wade would cause like you know, an earthquake in the discourse. I mean, like it would just be like, it would be unlike anything we can imagine, you know? And so they're not going to do that. They're just not going to do that. They're going to like slide things, you know, under the radar, like child slavery, because they know that no one gives a shit about that. Like no one gives a shit about stuff that happens abroad, you know, and no one gives a shit. I mean, no one in the discourse gives a shit about like anything that relates to like worker protections or anything like that. They give a shit about like social issues. So they're not going to touch those social issues.
Right on about that. You're right on about that. Yeah. I mean, I think what we should be the most concerned about in regard to the Supreme Court is the things that we're not paying attention to, right? Yeah. So this is a case that the media clearly wasn't paying close attention to this making its way up to the Supreme Court. I didn't know about it until you told me about it this morning. So definitely pay attention to some of the corporate related cases making its way to the Supreme Court, because I would argue that those are the cases where we're going to see some pretty significant losses.